All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the No Fucks Given podcast. I am Will Cordingley, and this is my co host, Ryan Perry.
Yeah,
And
good to see you again, Will.
Yeah, good to see you too, Ryan. Happy to be here. We got a fun one today. Today, we are talking about making lasting positive change. Not tomorrow, but today. We're going to make lasting positive change today in our lives.
I love it. If
And
only
how
we
the
could
hell
make
do
it
we do
yesterday.
that? Yes, alas, if only we could have done it 10, 20, 30 years ago, but here we are living right now,
Yeah,
the point of most power in our lives.
the point of most power in our lives. That could be a subtitle right there for something. That could be a book, Will.
For
Write that
something,
down.
yeah.
I like that one.
Time is a construct. It's a human construct. We made it up, but that's probably for another day.
Yeah, probably.
So
for
here we
another
are
day.
right now, and what do we want to do with right now, and right now, and right now?
Yeah,
That's
and
how it gets
now.
a little tricky.
Right. Yeah. I think what we want to do is figure out how to make lasting positive change right now.
Yeah.
I mean, today. And so maybe kind of like what we did with last week's show is kind of start from the basics of how does the brain work from a little bit, some presuppositions that we're working from, because if you don't understand what the system is, then how can you make change? It's kind of like if you don't know the rules of the game, then how can you make change in the ways that you want?
Teach a man or woman to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime, right? And
There
if
you
give
go.
them a fish, they'll eat today. It's that.
Right.
That's a very fundamental truth.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do here, people. Learn how to fish.
Mind fish.
Mind
It's
fish.
a mental fishing game. Never been a big fisher, but mental fishing I do truly enjoy.
I haven't either. It's fun enough. But by fishing, what we mean here is making choices about our life and noticing that they come about more often than not. That's kind of the game we want to be playing here with our time on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's what today's all about.
And this episode was really kind of built on top of last week's episode of being able to really identify patterns that happen in life and being able to be aware of, how are those patterns created? Why are those patterns there? So we talked a lot about that. And if you're interested, highly recommend checking out that show from last week. So I think the very first thing, if you want to make lasting change, I think there's kind of two key things that are going on here. One, you got to have a clear understanding of what is it that you want, using the old GPS analogy. If you know where you're at today in life, but you don't know where you're at, it's kind of like using a GPS. You have to put in a point of your present state, and then you have to put in a physical address into a GPS unit for your desired state. Where is it that you desire to go? If you don't have a clear understanding of what that is, then it's going to be really hard for the mind or the GPS unit to get you there. So we're going to talk a little bit about clarity. We're going to we're going to go through 5 questions that we use a lot in order to get that clarity. And then I think the other thing that we could touch on briefly a little bit is going to be those patterns, because they're so important, but we just talked about them last week. Because if you don't identify the patterns that are keeping you in place where you're at today, then how do you know what change needs to be made in the first place? Like specifically, this is a pattern that keeps on repeating. I want to change this pattern. And from there, we can identify what we do want versus what we don't want. And I guess maybe that's a third thing, or is that like a point A, is being able to state what you want in a positive statement versus a negative statement of what I don't want.
Yeah. And I'm personally, I'm a little more okay with people knowing what they don't want. It's a fine starting place. It's not where you want to end up, but whatever impetus moves you towards moving in a more positive direction in your life, moving away from something's totally fine.
Right.
So
Because it's kind
like,
of like
God,
the
I don't
GPS.
want this anymore.
Right. I know I don't want to go this way. I know I want to go this way. So
Yeah,
it's giving you some clarity. But
yeah,
we ultimately we kind of need to know where are we going to pin you on the map so we can get you moving in the right direction in the ways that you want.
yeah,
Now,
absolutely. Sometimes it takes a little more time. You're like, well, the GPS is like, where do you want to go? Like, I don't want to be here anymore. Okay, well, where do you want to go? I don't know
right,
anywhere but here. I just
right,
can't even think about anything else. I'm so collapsed and in pain about it. So
right,
it just depends on what's going on. But
yeah,
usually, yes, if you can make a choice about what you would like, that is what you want to do.
right. Yeah, and let's talk about being clear on the choice, because a lot of words that I hear is if we're going to talk about money, I want to be wealthy, I want to have enough to live a comfortable life.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a general idea of what it is that you want. And the other word I hear a lot of is freedom. People want to have more freedom in their life. It could be financial freedom, emotional freedom. I just want to be able to go out and do stuff and feel free.
Mhm.
Okay. That is kind of like north, east, west, south. At least you have an idea of where you want to go. But for today's episode, and as far as long lasting change, is getting really clear on what is it that you want. And so part of that, if you think about what it is that you do want, understanding that there's different levels underneath it that are driving that end result. So if I want to live a comfortable life, totally makes sense. There's a lot of value, but there's also a lot of underneath that, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
detail missing also.
Yeah, comfortable how is the appropriate question, because my comfortable life is probably really different than your comfortable life,
Right.
and other people's what that includes, could be a million different things.
Right. Because mine's going to
And getting
include
that,
heat. I want
yeah,
heat. If I could just
yeah,
live where it never rained, I don't mind
mhm.
visiting the rain, but I don't need to live where it rains on a regular basis. And I don't need
Perfect
snow.
example.
Don't need to live in snow. If it was
Yeah, I'm
90
not a fan
degrees
of
out every
snow.
day, piece of cake.
Yeah, perfect. And for me, I lived in the Pacific Northwest up in Washington State for 8 years, and I loved the rain. And
Mm,
that was not a problem for me that it rains, 9 months out of the year mostly.
all right.
In San Francisco right now, we're having a foggy summer, and I am like, super, super excited about it. It's great. Yeah.
Oh.
So this is why we get specific people. We can
All right.
imagine what people want, but it's probably not true. So that's why, as when I work with someone, I don't assume I know what they mean. I get
Right.
clear about what they mean. And that's a big step for you in making change in your own life, is getting really clear about what you want and what you mean about it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think kind of going deeper in understanding what is it that you want is really important, because if we don't go deeper on why is that important, and why is not the right word, but it's really important to get really deep at what's driving the top layer emotion, what's consciously available to you. There's a lot of
Mhm.
stuff going on in the subconscious and unconscious and the critter brain that is driving all of that up. The deeper you get into what's going on down here, deeper in the mind, then you're going to have a lot more clarity and understanding of the choices that you need to make in order to have the change that you want in your life.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, should we dive into it a bit, or
Let's dive into it. What the
anything
heck?
else to be said?
Yeah.
What we're going to do here today is talk you through something that is called the outcome frame, and it comes from traditional NLP. Kind of the inception of it was in the 70s, or developed over time starting in the 70s. You can find this in any basic NLP book. Um, but Ryan and I are going to talk you through the 5 basic questions that we run through with clients, and why they're important to you if you want to do this for yourself. Because self-healing and self-change can be super powerful and super valid,
Yeah.
but can only go so far, in my opinion. An outside perspective is always needed,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not what we're up to today. So the first question is, well, what would you like? What do you want in your life? And that can include a positive statement or maybe an away from or so-called negative statement. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want this anymore. I don't want to date jerks anymore. I don't want to be broke anymore.
Right.
Okay, well, what would you like? I want a romantic partner who sees me properly and is fulfilling and cares about my needs, but also knows who they are. I want to have, I don't know, I want to win the lottery. I want to change careers and have a huge raise. It could be so many things. This is
Right.
why we ask, getting specific, exactly what would you like about this?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to notice the difference that if you start off with what I don't want, while that's a great start, step one with what do you want in order to move forward towards something, if you can spin that, even if it's in the smallest ways that you know how, spin that into what it is that you do want. And some people, they really get stuck on this because there's just, I just know I don't want this. Then you try and reframe. No, I don't want this. And without moving forward, it towards moving it into a positive light, into moving towards something. It can be difficult for these other questions to really be successful for you. So
Mm-hmm.
do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, shoot for it. Like I said, if it's so challenging and you're so hyper focused on it the way it is and how you don't want it to be that way, that's workable too, but
Right.
um, not totally ideal,
Yeah.
but still valid. When I work with clients who can't just, they got that tunnel vision about it, it's just helps me get important information about, well,
Right.
what is it like for you right now exactly, that what's
Correct.
going on that you don't want, and just being with that for a bit. In last week's episode we talked a bit about yielding to your experience, or
Mm-hmm.
including it or consenting to it, how we talk about it. It helps people just like, okay, people see me in my pain, and that loosens up and frays the edges of, well, maybe this can complete a bit, maybe it can move a bit, and then I can, oh shit, I wait, I can make a choice about this. I
All
could
right.
I could have this be different.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. So
And then,
don't beat yourself up if all you want is to not have something,
yeah,
if that's where you're at, because
fair
you've
enough.
probably been beating yourself up for your whole life, I would guess.
Yeah.
That's where it gets problematic,
Yeah.
either consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah. And then number two is, what will having that do for you? So this is one of my favorite questions, because this is the one that if people haven't heard it before, you kind of get the head tilt. In my experience, people are like,
Yeah.
huh? And it just hits the brain in a different way than, well, why do you want that? And I don't know, I don't think we need to go into the psychology of why do you want that, why that's not as powerful of a question as what will having that do for you. But I think what's really nice about this is that this question is really designed, as I was saying earlier, is that a lot of times what we want is kind of up here. It's kind of a surface level thing. And we don't realize that there's actually a lot of other emotions, thoughts, and feelings that are going on underneath it. So the second question, what will having that do for you, is really designed to take it just a little bit deeper and give you more clarity on what's driving your statement in the first place.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. I mean, utterly brilliant. Some question, not all questions are designed equally, and this is like a top tier one. I would say every question in the outcome frame is really brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
kind of what came together in the 70s and 80s was really incredible, in my opinion. Uh, but as you said, this question is designed to elicit the truer, deeper drivers of what's going on, and that either elicits like deeper drivers in your life, like an external driver. And if you keep asking this, you don't ask it once, you can ask it as many times as you want, and
Right.
with that, whatever answer you get, okay, and when I have this, what will having that do for me? All right, thank you. And when you get that, what will having that do for you? It elicits the deep emotional drivers and kind of the the identity driver, or the the identity of ourselves, or the experience of ourselves that we're reaching for at the deepest level, that will be
Right.
elicited down the road in this chain as well. So it's really incredible.
All right. So
So if you want more money and then you run this through and it turns out what you really want is to be happy, right? Or be yourself or something,
mhm.
you still want both of them, but now you have a much, much richer idea of what's truly going on here. Like
Right.
you want to be free and you want to be yourself, and you still want the money too, and that's
Right.
fine.
Right. Because
Yeah,
a lot
but
of
it's a clearer
times,
picture.
yeah, and often without addressing what's going on at a sub level, if you don't address this, this is not going to resolve anyway. So it's helpful.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't know if this is the best example, but like rotted wood. You know, if you've ever had
Mhm.
I've had a house that the tub leaked, and so underneath it, the wood started to rot. At the surface level, the tile on the floor looked good, but
Mhm.
underneath is where the rot was. And so we have to get down in there and get into that rot. And there's a couple of different layers. You have your subfloor, and then you've got the actual underfloor, and then you got your 2x4s or stringers, depending on how your house is constructed. And so if all you do is get the underfloor or the subfloor, but you don't get the 2x4s, which has started the rot out also, you're working from a weak foundation. And so personally, I love this question because it
Mhm.
allows you to get deeper. And if you find that the answer is, oh, what will having that do for you? Well, I'll be happy, happier, or I'll be happy. Ideally, we'll be happy because we'll succeeded at being happy, whatever that is. And then, as Will was saying, ask that again, because then the next question is, well, what will being happy do for you? And there's a
Yep.
reason why happy is showing up. It's a way of communicating with the unconscious subconscious mind that we've never been taught. You know, unless you've gone to specialized training, it's not something I don't think is regularly available. But these questions will connect you with the deeper level of self. And if you get away from these generic answers, I'll be happy. Okay, dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
What will having that happiness or being happy do for you? Oh, I'll be respected. Oh, okay. What? And it's weird because sometimes it'll go off in some weird tangent that you never knew, and it's just because
Yeah.
there's all these other layers that are underneath.
Yeah. And all kinds of stuff that you may never would have expected to come up can come up too. And
Yeah.
that's incredibly important, because I feel like I come on here and just bash logic and reason and rationality all the time. And I don't mean to do that, but the stuff that's in the way is probably not rational, logical, or reasonable at all. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
And it doesn't have to make sense either, right? So a lot of
Yeah,
times
not at all.
you might go, "Oh, well, I'll probably end up going here, 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 and here." And then you
Mhm.
start going and it's here, here. It's like, "Whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Excuse me." And so allow that to be and kind of
Mhm.
sit with that, especially if it is something where you just took a left turn and we're not expecting it. Again, you're communicating with a deeper part of your mind that most people didn't even know was available. And so
Mhm.
you're going to find you may find some very interesting things out about yourself, which again, if you want to be able to make positive change, we got to get to this deeper level self. and make that change there. And that means
Yeah.
having awareness first. So,
Yep.
all right. I think we
And
beat that one up pretty
mining.
good.
Yeah. Got it. KO. Got it.
So number 3,
Uh,
Will, what you got for number 3?
Number 3, the question is, how will you know when you have it? So, what would you like? I would like more money. Great. And how will you know when you have more money? What will be the internal and external indicators, the real world stuff, and the kind of emotional or identity experience of yourself that will let you know that now you have more money?
Right. Because if I gave you a penny, you would have more money, right?
Yeah. And I'd be
So,
like, what the hell is this? That's not what I meant. That's a great example, though.
right. So having
Yeah.
more money, and when we have more money, at what point is more money enough? Because some
Mhm.
people it seems like it's never enough, and it drives them in other ways that maybe isn't healthy.
Yeah, that's kind of one of I mean, it's not really related to this, but never having enough money is seems to be one of the pathologies that we've greenlit, as a society. We don't make people wrong for that one, and we
Right.
probably should look at that a bit. But anyways, yes, how will you know when you have it? We need to know the indicators of it, right? Is it a
Mm-hmm.
raise? Is a dead relative you didn't know about send you an inheritance? Do you win the lottery?
Right.
Do you get way more clients? Do you increase your fees? It could be so many things.
Right.
That's too much work. This is why I just ask people. I don't guess. Come on
Right.
here and guess about stuff, and that takes too much brain power. But for
Right.
you to make change in yourself, running through these questions, you need to be really clear about how you know when you'll. Well, I gotta have what I want. Holy shit! Like,
Right.
look at this, it's happening. I have the internal state, I have the internal experiences that I said I would know when I have what I want. I have the external things happening too. You just really need to be clear about that. So then, one, you can realize that mission accomplished. You've created a change inside yourself, which is
Right.
incredible, and also kind of, again, in my opinion, what we came to this planet to do to a certain degree. And then also, you can enjoy that experience and have it. And at a certain point, you're gonna go, all right, well, what's next? What do I want next? Like, it's
Right.
an indicator of moving towards something different as well.
Right. It's kind of, we were talking about last week that as you move forward in life and you start having more of what you want, that your worst day is actually is actually higher than your best days of years past.
Mhm.
So it's nice to be able to mark out specifically what that experience is, or if it's more money, or do you want $1 million in a checking account? Is it $1 million in assets? So when
Mhm.
you're really clear about that, because the reality is about making lasting positive change is that it doesn't happen overnight. Typically, most people, as they make change, they don't realize they've actually succeeded at what they want until an
Mhm.
event happens. And then it's like, oh, I have awareness. I actually can calibrate that I have succeeded.
Yeah.
And so having that marker in place that you can calibrate to, you can go, wow, now having $1 million today, it's doable, but it doesn't really fulfill the lifestyle that I want. And
Mhm.
so now my worst day of only having $1 million is so much better than my best day when I only had $250,000. And now we can
Yeah.
kind of reevaluate and go, okay, well, what is it that I want? I want to get to $2.5 million. Okay, great.
Yep.
So how will you know when you have whatever it is kind of an important question. And how many times, I don't know about you, but how many times have people asked you or you've asked somebody else and you've really stumped them? because
This one is a
conceptually,
stumper. It's
yeah.
I want a better relationship. Okay. How
Ooh,
will you
that's a
know
good
when you
one.
have a better relationship, right? That
I'll
there's
be
only
happy.
a bill there's only a billion different ways you could answer that question. So
Right.
you're going to
Right.
want to be clear about which components of those billion variables you want to have personally.
Right. She's going to cook for me. She's going to take me on vacation. She's wealthy, just the simple stuff.
Yeah. Granted, there you
Yeah.
go. Maybe
Just the
I'll
simple
add
stuff.
in, yeah, she it validates your existence and supports you emotionally too. Maybe some
Ooh.
little sprinkle of those kind of
Yeah.
things
I like
too.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. See, this
So,
is important.
yeah. So just like the other questions, this is going to help you get a little bit deeper on truly understanding what is it that you want, so that when you do pin that GPS, this is what I want, you're going to have a very clear understanding. It's going to make it really easy for your brain to figure out where you go.
Yeah,
So once you and take your time with these, by the way, these don't have to be answered right away. If you have to kind of sit
no,
on it and think about it and really get deep with your emotions and sit with yourself, feel free to do that. Or if they come to you right away, great. Go with it, move forward. The next question is, with whom, where, and when would you like this?
yep.
And it doesn't have to
So
be in that order necessarily.
it's kind of three different questions in one. So depending on the outcome, it may involve other people. It
Yep.
may not, but we want to ask. So who else might this involve, and how might they be affected by it? Or when you get what you want, does that include anyone else?
Right.
Oh yeah, I want my business to grow. Okay, and I have a business partner that's going to involve them.
Mm-hmm.
These kind of considerations come up. Where would you like it? Does it happen in a specific physical place for some reason? I want to take a vacation. Well, where do you want to go? Oh, the Bahamas. Okay, well, that's important. So you don't end up in France, because that's
Right.
not what you want.
Sure.
But yeah.
Or
And when would you
Modesto.
like this? Yeah. To each their own. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's like, if you could, if we're operating like our choices just happen automatically without a time delay, like, well, I want to go on a vacation, and it's unspecified, and you just poof into somewhere, it may not be where you want to be. So you want to
Right.
get specific about it. And when would you like this outcome is an incredibly important one, because
Mm-hmm.
we want to kind of start putting our psyche in gear towards working towards something that we want in time, because we operate
Right.
in time, or at least our minds do.
Right.
So, I want to. Most people say I want it yesterday, which is always a fun one to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough, but okay. Um, or you're like, well, I want my business to grow by $2 million. So when would you like that? Oh, I think that could happen, 2 quarters from now or a year from now. So you just want to get clear about how it might
Right.
operate in your life. You don't want to limit yourself. That's not the point of it. But just
Mm-hmm.
getting oriented is important for these three more reality-based questions.
Right. And a lot of times I find it's helpful if, as you're going through these questions, is set them aside, write them down. Actually, we'll put them in the description so you can copy and paste them. Is that when you kind of think about who, when, where, is actually kind of look to that future version. So just kind of using your mind's eyes, using your imagination, as you know how to do, is look at that future version of you. If it's a year down the road where you have whatever it is, just kind of imagine yourself waking up. Who's there? What's the experience like? What are you having for breakfast? Where are you having breakfast? If you're having breakfast, or whatever it is, what's that view? Are you on vacation? Are you in this house that you want? And then as you move forward throughout the day, who are the people that show up? throughout the day who are part of this experience that you want, it's really kind of fun to imagine what that is and then bring that into, and I think it helps bring clarity to the what do you want part also.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's designed to break the rules of marketing speak and use some jargon. NLP nerd speak. It helps build out the map of your reality, and in
Right.
this case, your future reality. What future do you want to move towards? And it
Mm-hmm.
just makes it richer and more real. We build out, instead of just having black and white stick drawings of it, we're starting to color it in, and we're starting to add the emotional experience of it. We're starting to make it more real in our minds, because we can, study after study, have been proven that visualization makes a huge difference, especially the richer and more emotionally involved it is. Our minds can't tell the difference between an imagined, very
Right.
visceral experience and an actual visceral experience.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. We're just kind of helping ourselves get clearer about what we want and how it's going to be.
Right. Yeah. And then number 5 is really the kicker here. And
Number 5, that's
good
an
old number
important
5.
one.
And there's two
Yeah.
versions of number 5. The first one being, what might you lose that you value when you have this good outcome? And think
It's an
about
important
that one for
question.
a second. Yeah.
Yeah, let's let that, like a fine bottle of wine, let's let that
Yeah.
breathe for a second.
We gotta do the little swirl a little bit. So the question
Yeah.
is, what might you lose that you value when you have this great outcome?
Yeah. And in NLP, again, NLP jargony nerd speak, we call this the ecology of the change. And
Mhm.
ecology in this case meaning, if we take a system view of someone, everyone is a whole system and all parts are interconnected and working within themselves. If we change something about this system, how are other parts going to be affected, either positively or negatively?
Right.
And this is really, I mean, this one, they're all important, but I'll just say we'll add an asterisk to this one. It's like,
Right.
this one's really important. We'll put an exclamation point too, or
We
something.
we saved the best for last, folks.
Because our somewhere in our minds, we always know this stuff. It's just not conscious. We know that. Oh God, there's so much to say. I just loaded
Right.
it all up at the
Well,
same
we kind
time.
of we
So
work with a presupposition that you have all of the capabilities to have the experience that you want.
yeah,
So all the tools are available to you. However, there's something that is stopping you, that is keeping you from moving forward. That's the ecology. And
yeah,
the ecology is super important because it's going to let you know, even though consciously this feels good and what you want is excellent and it sounds great and it's all great. However, the unconscious or subconscious, the critter brain, all of the, there's kind of multiple layers of the brain that are working in the background are going, but this bad thing is going to happen when you do it. And that's kind of what
yeah,
this question is designed to uncover, is what is that bad thing? Oh, your parents aren't going to respect you or love you anymore because you're making more money than them. Um,
yeah. Or
you
you
know,
imagine that's what's going to
you
happen.
imagine that, yeah, this is,
Yeah,
but in the unconscious mind, this is true.
yeah,
It's already based on your identity, based on your belief structure, and part of that survivability part that creates the patterns that we talked about last week. As far as it's concerned, it's true. I've also had conversations with people where they're like, "Oh shit, I'll end up getting a divorce if I
yeah,
have what I want. I'm going to have a divorce." And yeah, no wonder why, because their partner is really important to them, but they've
hmm
had to make compromises because it's, joys of having a partner is compromise. And then the question becomes, okay, Well, we might have to start back at the bottom, or at the top, excuse me, based on all of the information that we've collected now. What is it that you would like? And now we have to kind of rephrase or reframe what it is they want. And what's really cool about this is that a lot of times, because we have these unconscious thoughts going on, these beliefs and identity patternings going on, is that as you talk through that, they realize that they can actually have what they want while still being married. And in fact, it might be better for
Mhm.
both couples.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
The clarity you never know where it'll end up.
right.
That's
And
what's interesting about it.
there are other times they're like, nope, there's no way in hell this is going to end up in divorce.
Mhm.
Well, you
Yeah.
got
Yeah. It's
yourself in
like,
quite a pickle.
yeah, the ecology can express itself in real world ways or internal ways, right? So we touched on a bit of it, like externally, as you said. It's like, so what would you like? My life's dream is to be a race car driver. All right, great, awesome. So how's it going? Blah blah blah. Okay, and when you
I
become a
drive a
race car
Yugo.
driver, I'm skipping forward just for time's sake. Well, through the other questions. So, what might you lose that you value when you're the race car driver that you want to be? Well, God, who would have thought? But of all the gin joints in all the world, my wife said she's could never date a race car driver because
Right.
her father was at and it didn't go well or whatever it is. Like, okay, wow, that's a biggie. I appreciate
Right.
you sharing that. So, given that, and she's sure about this, like there's no leeway on this, kind of how she's like, no, she's hard line, would never ever ever,
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do it. All right, so given that if you get what you want it will lead to the loss of your relationship, now what would you like?
Right.
And there's no wrong answer to that, but
Mm-hmm.
now we have some very 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 important clarity about the
Right.
situation. That's
Right.
an external reality. If I get what I want, my life will be affected in some way in the real world. I might lose my job. I might piss off my boss. I might lose
Right.
my relationship. Uh, my parents will be mad. My kids will be mad, something
Right.
like that.
Yep.
A lot of the time, this happens more internally. And that's why people are like, the hell do you mean? Like, when I get what I want, I won't lose anything that I value. I'll only be happy and fulfilled and, you know, living like a badass with all this money, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. You
Um,
are a badass, Will. Just
yeah,
wanted you to know that.
I appreciate, thanks for, I'll just let that go in. I'll let that wave come through me. I
Uh,
appreciate that.
you're very welcome,
As
sir.
are you. I think we're starting to find our trend here and,
Yeah.
helping people out.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, this ecology one, this is where we wanted to kind of, when we were prepping for this show, we're probably like, this is where we'll spend most of our time, because this is one, it's a tricky concept to totally grasp, and it took
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and I years to chew on it and really get it. So if this all sounds weird or stupid or counterintuitive, that's understandable.
Right.
But like, just trust us that this is really important to grasp, that there's a reason we don't have what we want. We always and only move towards the best decision on our map that's available to us right now. And
Right.
if we don't have what we want inside of our system, it's not the best available choice for some reason. And the ecology of that is the reason why.
Right.
And usually, I find personally and with clients, the ecology is not usually real world related. Or if it is, they're kind of aware of it already. It's usually more related to um, like pain coming up inside of us. The ecology is we're bumping up against our unconscious beliefs. We're bumping up
Mm-hmm.
against parts of our identity that are limiting us, that we don't even know are limiting us. We're bumping up against family loyalty, unconscious rules of the family we grew up in that we didn't even know existed. So if I get what I want, I'm breaking a family rule, or I'm
Right.
dishonoring my father in the past by surpassing him, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
making my mother mad by, taking up space in the world. There's a million ways it could go, but
Right. And a lot of
um,
times
yeah.
when you ask people, because they have this experience, oh, I'm gonna, how, you use, I like the father one because it's ones that relates to me is, um,
Mhm.
I've surpassed my father. And then you dig into that a little bit and come to find out, oh yeah, dad would be totally cool. He would think it'd be great
Yeah.
that I had what I want. Again, that's
Yeah.
the logical side, and that's where we kind of get frustrated sometimes. Okay, that's the logical side. However, the logical side doesn't make the decisions. It's the
Hmm.
unconscious, it's the critter brain that makes the decisions, and
Hmm.
we have to get clarity there, and we have to get an okay from the system that
Hmm.
dad's actually going to be okay with this in order to move forward, because it's such a strong emotional tie that most people are not going to move towards what they want. And if you want to
Hmm.
make changes and live the more authentic you in a positive way, these are those little nuances that have to be addressed and cleared up so that you can move
Hmm.
through it easily. Because once that filter's removed, and there's no
Yeah.
issue with whatever it is, may it be dad, mom, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. Once that filter is removed, oh, okay, we just keep on going. It's like red light, green light. If you're a
Yeah. It's
rule
like,
follower, even though you can turn right on a red light, some places, some countries, you don't turn right on a red light. And being in California, you always turn right on a red light, especially when there's no traffic coming. And you get somebody who maybe learned how to drive in a different country, and while they logically know that they can turn right, it just feels wrong. So
Mhm.
they'll just sit there, and everybody else is like, go. These are kind of the things that are going on in the mind
Mhm.
unconsciously that's creating these feelings. And so if we can just put a red or a green turn signal there instead of a red light, turn it to a green turn signal. Now, oh, okay, it feels comfortable to move forward because I have clarity that this is okay. And then the system doesn't rebel. Emotionally, it feels okay. And we move towards what we want.
Yeah, man, if you get one of these big ones revised, it's game on. Like
Yeah.
once it's once it's different, it's different.
Right.
That's and if it's a biggie like self-hate or like if you want to be a musician and you grew up in a family where all you could do was take on a practical job that made money because
Yeah.
that was the safe thing to do, and if you did anything else you'd be shamed or cast out of the system, that was kind of a classic example.
Yeah. There
Once
is,
you learn that's survivable, then you can do what you want.
yeah, I think the movie is
Yeah.
Soul. I'm just looking it up real quick. Yeah. Have you seen Soul, the Pixar movie, Disney Pixar movie? The
I
guy,
haven't. No.
totally recommend checking it out. This speaks to it.
Soul.
Yeah, it's called Soul.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
It speaks to what we're talking about so clearly. It's like, oh, they just made a movie about this, and it's great. And essentially, what it is there's a gentleman who's teaching music in like middle school, and he's in his 40s, 50s, not sure how old he is, but he's evolved in life. And his dream was always to be a musician. He always wanted to be on stage and, just playing for the people. And however, his mom was against that, oh, that's just a dream. You need to get a job and, all of the conventional stuff
Mhm.
that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And the movie, essentially, he finally meets like his idol, jazz singer idol, and this guy plays the piano, and he's phenomenal. He doesn't necessarily know he's fun. He knows he's good, but he doesn't know he's phenomenal because all his life he's been told, "Go get a job. You're not that good. You stop. This is just silly. You're dreaming." Ends up
Mhm.
getting this job, and he's got to show up at 6 o'clock that night at the thing, do the rehearsal, and he ends up dying.
Wow.
And so it's his soul's journey of going, I just figured out what I want and I broke through and I'm going to have what I want. And then it's all the struggle between, in this case, his mom, and just the emotional struggle of everything and the
Yeah.
fight and dun dun dun. So anyway, if you
And
haven't seen Soul, recommend checking it out because it totally speaks to
I'll
this.
check it out. And this is why Pixar's, does so well, is so famous. Their movies are really based on these really, really deep, ancient, archetypal, narratives of human plight. And that's kind of what
Right.
we're talking about here. They do an excellent job of speaking to the human condition and having emotional experiences while also being fun and entertaining.
Right.
So cool. I'll
Yeah.
check it out. But I'm glad you brought that up, because if we run with this example, if you're cool with it, it'll make it easier to explain a bit of how ecology plays out inside of us. Because what comes to my mind, let's go with like the tortured artist, and maybe specifically like the tortured rock band guy or gal. So
Mm-hmm.
you rebel against your family because your dream was so strong, and you make it and you become, you're out there and you're doing it, and you
Rock
have a band, and
on.
yeah, and you're rocking, yeah, you're throwing up the devil
See,
horns like
I
every
feel like I should
night.
have a mohawk right now. Damn.
I'm telling you, it's there in spirit for me. I can feel it. And these people, they're living their dreams, but they're miserable, right? They're
Yeah.
not happy. It's fulfilling on some level, but they're drug addicts, and they're manufacturing situations where the relationships are terrible, or they don't
Right.
even get in relationships. It's all just one night stands, and like low level contact in relating with people, and they ruin their friendships and they shit on their friends, and everything's chaos,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't have to be that way. We kind of have these tropes about the tortured artists and the starving artists and all this stuff, and it's not accurate, in my opinion. It's when we go against these family rules, or we go live a dream that really flies in the face of our identity, but we white knuckle through it and we just keep pressing.
Mm-hmm.
We still have all this unconscious guilt or shame or something. There's stuff
Right.
running there, and then we punish ourselves even though we're doing what we want.
Right.
Like we're killing ourselves with drugs and alcohol,
Right.
or we're
This should feel good, but
Mhm. Yeah, but the fact that it feels good makes it feel worse, because I'm flying in the face of unconscious family rules, or what I
right.
know to be true about myself, which doesn't update naturally. This is the thing. Sometimes stuff changes. Sometimes we take action and we have a reference experience that flies in
Mm-hmm.
the face of our identity and our belief, and it changes them. That does happen, but a lot
Right.
of the time it doesn't, because we have to update this stuff at the age it came online. If we have a 3-year-old that learns that, okay, the only way I'm going to survive this cruel family is to hate myself more than they hate me, so they leave me alone, as one
Right.
example,
Yep.
that doesn't go away. It's
Right.
locked in there. You have to
Yeah.
update that 3-year-old that,
Well, it's
that
kind
it's
of like
different now.
the hammer we were talking about last week, right? So if you're constantly
Yeah.
getting hit in the head that I have to be, I forget the exact words, but kind of worse than my family or degrade myself in ways to keep myself safe in my family, then
Mhm.
that equals survivability. Once you escape the
Yep.
family, because you go off to
Mhm.
college or you're like, hey, I'm 14, I'm going to get emancipated, I'm out of here because I can't handle it. That survivability patterning is still going on.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's crazy in the fact that logically it seems like we should be able to make the change, but it just doesn't happen unless you deal with those situations. Another great movie for, I think, what you're talking about specifically, Will, is Rocket Man, and looking at Elton John's life and what he
Mhm.
went through, and just and then Tina Turner. If you watch the documentary, there's a documentary on Netflix with Tina Turner, and how much her
Mhm.
mom was all, "You're not good." Even after Tina Turner got rich and famous, buys mom a mansion, furs, all the good stuff,
Mhm.
mom's like, "Oh, you didn't do that. You had help. Your team is what allowed you to do this. You didn't do this."
Wow.
And it's
Yeah.
just like, you can't. It's yeah. So anyhow,
I had no idea. Yeah, and you get yourself in abusive relationships that confirm what you believe about
right.
yourself, or in situations uniquely to parents that confirm that they were right about you or
Yeah,
something like that. And this is,
yeah,
we haven't gotten too deep with like unconscious family contracts and just stuff that kind of operates not only out of our conscious awareness but kind of out of space time, and like, it's a little bit woo woo, but it's entirely accurate how it
right.
plays out in people's lives. That,
Yeah,
if it was this way with you, mom, I'll go out into the world and maybe I'll be able to get a little bit of what I want, or I'll be fantastically successful, but
right,
I'll make sure that I'm just as fucking miserable, even though I have all this, as I am with you,
right,
because I love you.
right,
And this is why and that's the end part is what's important, because I love you,
right,
because we are connected in this way, because I'm of you and because I'm half of you. Like, I will do this in your honor, like I
right.
promise. And it's deep. It's like deep, deep,
Deep.
sad stuff.
Oh, you just
But
made me sad. So
because it,
thank you.
yeah. Well, this stuff is sad.
Like
I'm a little sadder now
legit,
too,
man.
and
I'm
I
just
don't.
like,
Yeah, yeah. And I don't even know much
thanks,
about Tina
Will.
Turner.
I was talking about my own damn life. I'm like, oh yeah, those contracts of obligations to our family.
Yeah,
Because your life, I
yeah,
forget, yeah, because your life was so miserable, I promise not to have a better life than you.
yeah. This stuff all comes online, and
Yeah,
children, or us as children, make these choices, and it's that's where it gets problematic. Usually, these deeply held limiting beliefs, when you say them, they sound like a kid would say them. They're very
yeah,
simple because it's simple logic,
right,
at that point.
yeah,
But the important part to know about them, and we could talk forever about that stuff, and we probably should at some point. But the important point for it today is that there are choices, and that
yes,
sounds crazy, but we do them out of love, and because they come are sourced out of love, um, the pain feels good. We can bear this pain because deeper down and more, the driver is love, and that comes with good feelings, even though horrible things are happening on the outside.
right, right,
And that's really messed up. It shouldn't be that way.
yeah. Being
And
human is more difficult than it's made out to be.
yeah, it's a bizarre thing we're doing here a lot of the time.
Yeah. So all of that was basically like ecology. That fifth question, what might you lose
Mhm.
that you value when you have this good thing? There's just all of this deeper level stuff going on that this
Mhm.
question is designed to address. And I think we alluded on it. You alluded on it a little bit earlier. If your answer is nothing, life would be great. Why would I
Mhm.
not want to live in the Bahamas with the hot girl and have all the money in the world and the yachts and the cars and the blah, 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 blah. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, what could be wrong with that?
What could be wrong with that?
Mm.
However, every decision you've made in your life has led you to where you are today. So there's a
Mm.
reason why you haven't moved towards or already have what it is that you say that you want. And I would also argue that if it's all about the hot women or guys, um, the cars, the money, the blah blah blah, that's like that's all superficial stuff, and that is hiding or covering something else emotionally. It's like filling a hole.
Mhm.
I'm going to fill it with the cars and the money and what I
Yeah.
perceive because society says I got to be with this type of person or I got to have this in order to be
Mhm.
successful or whatever. You're filling a hole that has no bottom,
Yeah.
and it's kind of that emotional hole. So you've got to figure out, okay, emotionally, what's going on a little bit deeper so that you don't have the hole to
Mhm.
fill. Because you can have the car, the yacht, the money, the girl, the whatever it is, and be emotionally intact at the same time, like emotionally happy, secure,
Mhm.
and all of those things, because your worst day in the future is so much better than your best day was in the past. You can have all of those things, just understand where they're coming from. And for that, we got to get a little bit deeper.
And that's what question number two, what will having that do for you, is
Yeah.
designed to pop you out of or elicit.
Right.
Oh, cool. What you like is a 20 car garage full of Lamborghinis and Ferraris.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm not going to make that wrong, but what
Mm-hmm.
will having that do for you?
Right.
Oh, then I'll feel better about myself. You
Right.
know, it's
Or
always those
or
kind of
people
things.
people will think people will know that I'm rich, or people will know that I'm blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, what will having that knowing do for you?
Yeah. Yeah. When you're
Oh.
seen in that way,
Oh
what will having
shit.
that do
Oh
for
yeah.
you?
There's this other thing going on in my life that I haven't addressed yet.
Mhm.
Okay, let's address that because that's what's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be tricky, right? I mean, empires and businesses are built on resistance. Some people will never address these things and they'll
Right.
just continue to amass Lamborghinis and fortunes and
Right.
everything. And if
Yeah.
you take away, if you make it better emotionally, they probably won't have the motivation to do that anymore, which
Yeah.
maybe will be okay. Or if they're training for the Olympics and the only thing that gets them out of bed is this painful thing that they're moving away from, maybe they don't want to win the gold anymore. So it gets
Right.
tricky too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That it does. All right, sir. I think we covered all 5 questions. Maybe a quick recap.
yeah.
We can
Yeah.
close this out.
So in order to get what you want, you have to know what you want. So question number one, what would you like? Get clear about that. And if you have to start with what you don't want, that's totally fine. But if you can move it towards a positive statement, that's always, preferred.
Mm-hmm.
Question number two, great. So when you have fill in the blank that you want, what will having that do for you? And you can ask that as many times as you want to elicit the kind of unconscious emotional drivers of why you want what you want. Or maybe you'll find you don't actually want what you want and you'll
Right.
revise the first question. That happens a lot too. It just
Yep.
kind of depends. Maybe you don't want 20 Lamborghinis after all, or maybe you do. It just
Mm-hmm.
kind of depends. Question number three, how will you know when you have it? Very important question. What will you see and notice in the external world when you have what you want? And what will you feel inside of yourself when you have what you want? Get really clear about that.
Right.
Question number four, where, when, and with whom would you like this? So, when do you want it? Who else will be involved? And where do you want it in case it's important that it's located in a certain location or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Or if it involves other people for some reason, or who will be there.
Yep.
Just getting clear, again, coloring in the map, getting a richer picture of what's going on. And
Yeah,
then
and this
question number
is, and
five.
before we get to 5, I
Yeah.
just want to reiterate, we talked about this earlier, is that kind of what we call future pacing is just kind of look towards your future and imagine what your day is like when you have what it is that you want. How does it feel? Who are you with? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Who are you having breakfast with, lunch with, dinner with? Are you going to the office? Are you going to play golf? Maybe you're on vacation, whatever that is. Imagine yourself and allow to imagine yourself without limits. If you start hearing that inside voice going, oh, that's not possible, do your best to kind of say thank you, but I'm going to let
Mhm.
that go and just allow exactly what it is that you would like in that image. And that'll help kind of color in more of that picture for you.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're big into visualization, and certainly is a good practice to have in your life, or if
Mm-hmm.
you don't, maybe give it a shot. Running through these questions helps you get a really clear picture or experience that you'd want to step into and visualize. I mean, this is kind of fundamentally important in terms of if you have a visualization practice or what
Right.
you want. And you may find when you run through these questions, the stuff that's in the way pops up naturally. You might have a weird thought that you bump up against the belief there that you didn't know was
Mm-hmm.
there, or you bump up a part of your identity that you didn't know would be in conflict of this positive future.
Right.
So our system, I mean, we're like, it's it's kind of the pain of this is also beautiful. It's like the things that hold us back are the indicators of how to get what we want too. Like
Right.
it works synergistically,
Yeah. However,
oddly enough.
we typically ignore the pain because we can only be happy and blah 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 blah. So anyhow, there's a whole nother conversation right there too.
Exactly. And question number 5: when you have what you want, what might you lose that you value? And the other way to ask it is, when you have what you want, who among the living and or the dead might this affect or impact, and how might it impact them?
Right.
And the fact that they're living or dead means because we tend to have unconscious family loyalties that can go back as far as great 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 grandparents. You might not even know, but certainly grandparents and parents can run consciously as well if we
Right.
put some attention on it. You never know, it just
Right.
depends on the person.
Yeah.
But when you have what you want, what is going to have to reorganize in your life, and how might that impact you? Probably more in a negative way than a positive one, but
Right.
maybe positive changes too. How will you be emotionally different, and how might this affect your external world in negative ways too that you hadn't thought about yet?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
So I would say with that, would love feedback, comments. Kind of as you're thinking about this as we were going through these questions, what came up for you? What's your experience? And from that, what might you have more additional questions about this process? We'd love to answer those, include them in future episodes.
And if you're listening in the future, last week's episode, Why We Repeat Painful Life Patterns, really, really goes well. We didn't call it part 1 and part 2 because these are different enough. But really, like, if you listen to this episode and the episode before it together, you can get a rich knowledge about
Right.
really getting into the unconscious stuff that gets in the way of what you want, and how to work with that, and how to move to what you want with clarity.
Yeah.
So, I would definitely check out. It's kind of a 1-2 punch, this episode and the one before it. 1-2 punch of
1, 2.
positive change in your life.
There you go. There you go. All righty, sir. I think with that, we have filled up quite a good show here today.
Yeah. Another impactful one. Hopefully lives are being changed out there. People can let us know, or let us know what wasn't clear and you want to know more about, and we'd be happy to help, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, perfect. All right, with that, I'll see you next week, Tuesday, 10:15 in the morning.
There we go. I'll see you there, Ryan. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Take care.